Hi there. I've been thinking a lot recently about the time when Jesus was asked, "What are the greatest commandments?" And in Mark 12, verse 31, we read that Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength." And the second is this: love your neighbour as yourself. It seems to me that those are two key commandments for these days as we're facing self-isolation and social distancing and worried about the present and the future in Ireland and across the world of what's going to happen as a result of COVID-19 coronavirus. How are we to respond? Well, I think what Jesus said is still true. The key responses are those two things: love the Lord your God and love your neighbour. First of all, he said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. In other words, with everything you've got, love God. Focus on him, because when he's number one, when he's the ultimate focus of our lives, then everything else falls into place. And then, of course, immediately following loving God is loving our neighbour, loving people, whether we like them or not, whether we even know them or not. Never was it more important to love our neighbour, to think of our neighbour. And it's not just the person next door, it's also when we go out. Part of the strange thing at the moment is part of thinking of your neighbour is maybe staying 2 metres apart from them. It seems really strange. We want to shake hands, we want to greet people. But part of loving people is, in fact, staying a little apart. I was just out shopping this morning, and I knew that it was important for me and for my neighbour that I stayed 2 metres apart from everybody else in the shop, which seems really strange, but that's the way it is. And yet, also, as we were just thinking, conversation with somebody yesterday, if you're out walking in the park or in the street and you move across to be 2 metres away from somebody that you're passing, you can still give them a smile. You can still say hello from a distance. So those two commands of Jesus, love God with everything, and then following from that, love your neighbour. I think those are key commandments for these days. And then as I was thinking about this, my attention came to Psalm 112. I read from verse 1. Praise the Lord. Blessed are those who fear the Lord, who find great delight in his commands. Their children will be mighty in the land. The generation of the upright will be blessed. Wealth and riches are in their houses, and their righteousness endures forever. Even in darkness, light dawns for the upright, for those who are gracious and compassionate and righteous. Good will come to those who are generous and lend freely, who conduct their affairs with justice. Surely the righteous will never be shaken. They will be remembered forever. They will have no fear of bad news. Their hearts are steadfast, trusting in the Lord. Their hearts are secure. They will have no fear. And so that psalm seems to me to be a wonderful picture of our calling in these days. And so it reflects, the psalm, I think, reflects what Jesus said were the two greatest commandments. The first greatest commandment, love the Lord with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your strength, and with all your soul. Well, it sounds to me very like verse 7 and 8 of the psalm. When we do that, they will have no fear of bad news. Their hearts are steadfast, trusting in the Lord. Their hearts are secure. They will have no fear. That's why it says in verse 1, blessed are those who fear the Lord. That means who respect, who follow, who trust, who make sure the Lord is on the throne of their lives. Blessed are those people. And then much of the rest of the psalm relates to what Jesus said was the second important commandment, love your neighbour, where in verses 4 and 5, it speaks of those who are gracious and compassionate and righteous, those who are generous and lend freely, who conduct their affairs with justice. Well, as Christians, that's always our calling, and never more was it important than in these days to be gracious and compassionate, to be generous and lend freely, to not get caught up in hoarding stuff, but to watch out for those who need stuff. So, take time today to love God again with all that you've got. all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, and all your strength. And then as you do that, ask God, who and with whom can you be generous in these days? Who should you phone? Or who should you write to? Or is there something you need to leave on somebody's doorstep? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And love your neighbour as yourself. Lord, help us do it. Amen.